Some big-time news from the Montreal Canadiens today as they've officially signed Rafael Harvey-Pinard to a 2-year contract extension worth $1.1 million per season. We'll be talking about the impact of that. Plus, could the Habs make a waiver claim on Detroit forward Filip Zadina, a guy that Habs fans wanted way back in the 2018 draft? We'll be discussing that, plus finally, an in-depth look at the Laval Rocket's stacked lineup for next season, so you won't want to miss this edition of Habs Digest. Jesse, the big news in Habs land today is the RHP extension, and it's something we knew was coming, but to finally see him sign $1.1 million per season for 2 years for Rafael Harvey-Pinard. The great thing about this deal, Jesse, is that he's still an RFA at the end of this, meaning Montreal still has his rights at the end of this contract, so no team can come swoop him up. He had a fantastic year last year with some time spent up on the first line. This is definitely a prove-it deal. You know, the Habs are like, hey, we'll give you $1 million per season for the next 2 years to show us more what you're made of. We're not going to assign you to a 5-year extension or anything, but I think this is just a win-win, right? Harvey-Pinard gets a couple years to prove his worth, maybe get a bigger contract at the end, and the Habs still get him as an RFA at the end of this 2 years. I feel like, Jesse, this also points to the fact that Harvey-Pinard must be staying with the Montreal Canadiens next season and not going down to Laval.
I'm so happy about that. I think he's absolutely proven that he deserves a spot with the big club. And I love this deal of how it works out, right? Again, it gives him, like, if he continues this production, you got to think that he's up for a massive payday in those 2 years, you know, and for Montreal kind of gets to see where he's at in his progression and kind of judge accordingly. But I mean, if you're RHP, you got to be really happy about this because this deal wasn't a given. Like, not long ago, he was kind of battling for his hockey career, for his hockey life in the AHL to kind of get to the big show. And last year, he really showed that he deserved it. He brought not only so much intangibles of just energy and you know, just that hard work and ethic, but also that skill as well, right? Like, remember, we had a lot of injuries last year, but RHP was playing on our first line and not just doing that, but playing really well. So he's one of the most intriguing players for me this year coming into camp. And even as the year continues, I'm going to be looking at him because he's shown us now that he has some offensive talents and we're going to be holding that to him, knowing that he has those skills.
Yeah, for sure. Now, it's pretty clear that if Rafael Harvey-Pinard spends time with the Habs for the next 2 seasons, he's probably not going to get back on that first line, barring injuries again, knock on wood. But the thing with Rafael Harvey-Pinard is he's really shown his ability around the net, and I think that was his biggest thing, right? We were calling him Lavaliger for a while as a joke because he played like Gallagher in Laval, but then he came to the show, and he was just Gallagher at a higher level of production, at least last year. We'll see how Gallagher bounces back, but like, this guy has some crazy shots. He looked like Caufield sometimes on breakaways. He clearly has the NHL skill, you know, right? From a 7th round pick, like Hail Mary pick from the Montreal Canadiens to working away in Laval into his 20s, and he finally gets a shot with a big club. He makes the most of it. I mean, you gotta feel great for the guy who, like you said, was battling for his career, and to now have a guaranteed $2 million for the next 2 years, and almost certainly another extension or sign some kind of contract at the end of that is just awesome. So it'll be awesome to see how he produces for Montreal next year. But Jesse, it brings an interesting question, because Montreal's already stacked at forward. We have like 13, 14 guys who could easily make the Habs forward rotation, but we saw a certain guy go on waivers today, and it's kind of interesting. I want to get your thoughts on this. We saw Elliot Friedman say Detroit has put Filip Zadina on waivers after not being able to find any trade partners for him. He demanded a trade, and they couldn't find anything for him. He really hasn't produced much at the NHL level, Jesse, but what are your thoughts on Zadina, and what are your thoughts on the Habs maybe taking a shot at this former 6th overall pick?
For myself, I'd have to take a pass on it. I feel like Hughes, he's really good at doing kind of like the buy low sort of moves. And again, a little bit of that agent nature kind of coming out, that business mind. But I think he knows the right spots to do that. You can't be doing it all the time. You know, Kirby Dach, you know, was a great option to kind of buy low. Okay, let's kind of develop this player, right? And you never want to rule out the Marty St. Louis effect that he can have on a team. But just for me, kind of sometimes having too many of these type of project players, you know, for me, it's just something I would want to steer clear with. Like, you know, he didn't have a bad second year, getting those 10 goals, getting 24 points, but just has failed to kind of find that traction, you know, in the NHL. And I just feel like we have so many young players right now, and we're almost kind of getting rid of players because we want to leave room for those players already within our organization that we've been developing. So for me, it would have to be a no.
Yeah, I kind of have the similar reaction. And my reaction when I saw a lot of Habs fans, like this was at the top of the subreddit. Everyone's talking about this, like, hey, let's take another shot. But some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. But my reaction is kind of like, why would they? Right? Like here's the thing. Like I get the idea that Kent Hughes likes this buy low thing, and it's worked for Kirby Dach, and hopefully it'll work. I mean, I don't know if Alex Newhook was a buy low per se, but I mean, you didn't have to pay a ton to get him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, let's just show stats again. Like, Zadina has just not really produced at the NHL level. Yes, he has the skill set. There's a reason he went 6th overall. And if you guys remember, a lot of Habs fans wanted him instead of Kotkaniemi that year, so kind of be full circle if he came to Montreal. But he'll be 24 in November, so he'll be 24 just about a month and a half into the season. I feel like he's pretty much fully developed. And a problem with Filip Zadina is that in his career before now, he's had a lot of poor line mates in Detroit. They gave him some shots he couldn't quite produce, and he ended up having line mates, someone like Pius Suter, where he just didn't have any chemistry with him, right? And if he comes to Montreal, we've already said like how many forwards Montreal already has to find a spot for. Where does he even fit in? You're going to have to relegate him to the 4th line because you're not going to play him in the top 6 for sure because it's just blocked. And you're not going to try and block your prospects development with this kind of reclamation project. I don't know, Jesse. I just feel like it makes no sense for the Habs to go after him. I get it. It's only like $1.8 million a year for the next 2 years, but I'm just not sold. Am I crazy out to lunch here?
No, not at all. And what it just kind of reminds you of when we're seeing this is that like drafting really isn't like a sure science for sure. Because we're seeing obviously he was a high draft pick, obviously not coming up to his potential. There's Barrett Hayden, which was obviously taken very high from the Phoenix Coyotes. I mean, looking great at the World Juniors for Canada, just for whatever reason, just not really making his way in the NHL. So, I mean, it does kind of drive home that point of you never want to be too conservative, but where you feel like you can get a player in the draft and having skill is so important because it just goes to show that we don't really, it's not a given, right? Because you're getting that top 10 pick that they're really going to come into something. I mean, it's unfortunate for Filip, but I think that we're really with our defense set when we're going to look to address our forwards in the future. It's probably going to be through free agency, like probably not this summer. I think maybe more next summer is where we're going to swing for that big goal scoring kind of free agent because we have such a young decor now. What's great about that is that's going to cost us less on the cap. We're kind of set in that way. So allow us to spend on our offense. I think the way we'll do that is probably, big scoring free agent, probably next summer.
I completely agree. Final topic of the video today, Jesse. We're just continuing with talking about the depth on Montreal, right? Everything is just oozing depth in this organization. But let's take a look at the Laval roster because the Rocket for next season look, quite frankly, just ridiculous. So just look at the sheer amount of 21 and under players we have here. Now, a few of them are on junior contracts, like Philip Zadina and Owen Beck, but they'll end up spending some time for sure in the AHL. And man, like how many of these guys have we already hyped up, right, as prospects? Mayshar for sure, Sean Farrell, Emil Heineman, Owen Beck, Xavier Simoneau had a great year last year, Riley Kidney, Joshua Waugh, Jan Mishak, they just signed Elias Anderson. You even got guys like Jesse Ullinen, who's probably going to play for Montreal, Logan Mailloux on D, with Jaden Struble, Matthias Norlander, William Trudeau, who was their top D-man by the end of last year at the age of 20, not to mention Jakob Dobesh is probably going to be holding down the fort in net if he can prove he's worth it over Cayden Primo. I don't know about you, Jesse, but this is the most excited I have ever been for Montreal's AHL team. And that includes when their AHL team was in St. John's. Yeah, I went to games, but like this roster, it just oozes talent, and I cannot wait to see how they put it together.
Yeah, this is the best that the Laval Rocket has been for a long time. And what's so nice is that they're really mirroring the big club in the fact of having so much youth, right? So nice to see that kind of that consistency in the organization. We've really kind of flipped the page. That new wave of Habs we're developing. We wanted players that we could really put our own fingerprints on and really develop ourselves, right? As we've seen, that's been such a big issue for us in the past, but this isn't to be, it's not to be downplayed because this has been a problem for us for a long time of really being able to develop and have a good system. And while not all these players are going to come to the NHL, that's the whole point is when you get a lot of really good ones, you're obviously very much improving your chances of these players, some of them progressing at the next level, which I think we'll definitely see. I think that Heineman's a player. Joshua Waugh, obviously, I'm really big on. Owen Beck. So these are all players that'll probably get some time in Montreal next year. But, I mean, it's going to look stacked, and I'm even looking forward to just keeping track of the Rocket next year and see how they're doing as well.
For sure. And I mean, at the very least, the youth movement is trickling down to Laval. All these guys are going to learn to play together. And I'm sure a lot of these guys in the future will be teammates on the Montreal Canadiens. So super excited to see that. Not to mention, forgot to even say this, Jared Davidson, just before we started recording, CHL champion, Seattle Thunderbirds star Jared Davidson, just signed a one-way contract with the Laval Rocket as well. So add him to this list of crazy players. So super, super exciting. We'll probably be watching more Laval games than ever this season. I think you guys should too. But that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us reach 7,000. We are getting closer and closer every single day. Over 6,250 now. We hope you guys can help us reach 10 someday soon. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.